Welcome to The Lowdown, the newest podcast from Belden Communications, hosted by yours truly, Wayne Belden, president of Belden Communications, and co-hosted by my son, John Belden, vice president of Belden Communications. Listen to The Lowdown as John and I chat and get candid with those in the know about the hottest issues affecting all of us in Volusia and Flagler Counties. We'll sometimes be direct, get loud, and sometimes hilarious, but always educational and informational about the challenging aspects of issues facing us all. Which topics will we cover, and who will be our guest? Well, you can bet it will be someone who can have a direct impact on the subject we're talking about. You can hear and watch our podcast live on Facebook on a pre-announced date each month. Be sure to tune in, because whatever topic we're covering, we'll be giving you The Lowdown. Welcome to The Lowdown, a podcast created with you in mind. As I said in the open, it's our hope to bring you The Lowdown, your need-to-know podcast on pre-announced dates each month, where we talk about the hottest issues with pertinent guests that affect all of us in Volusia and Flagler Counties. It's our intent to be able to have guests on our podcast with direct influence on the issues at hand and get something done, or at least help to get issues resolved. So let's get things started. I want to introduce my co-host today, who's sitting in for my son John, who's normally here. He's a bit under the weather. I want to introduce Phil Bird, who's our producer and director of digital communications at Belden Communications. Phil, welcome to the show.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody. You know, as a renter, there's a lot of information that I need to know, especially about insurance and stuff. So this could be very, very informative. So stay tuned, guys.
Yep. And also I want to give kudos to our sponsor, which is Countryside Inn and Suites by Radisson in Port Orange. Soak up the Florida sun at Country Inn and Suites by Radisson in Port Orange, conveniently located just off I-95, only minutes from the beach. Country Inn and Suites by Radisson in Port Orange makes a great launching pad for your Florida beach vacation. The whole family can play in the surf at beautiful New Smyrna Beach or enjoy roller coasters and go-karts at Daytona Beach's 3 amusement parks, all less than 12 miles from this hotel. If you're a NASCAR fan, you won't want to miss the races at the iconic Daytona International Speedway, and bargain hunters can score deals at nearby Tanger outlets. There's something for everyone, only minutes from the hotel. For more information and to book your stay now, visit portorangeconnection.com/Country Inn Suites here in Port Orange. We are thrilled to have Steve Hall, who is president of East Coast Insurors, and he's here to talk to us today about something that lots of people have been talking about. Everyone's concerned about what's going on with the insurance industry here in Florida. Florida's property insurance market was the most volatile in the U.S. before Hurricane Ian formed, and will most likely become even more unstable in the wake of the storm. That's a direct quote from Mark Friedlander, communications director at the Insurance Information Institute. So, Steve, what made the insurance market volatile before Hurricane Ian?
Wow. Primarily, the roof issue in the state of Florida it's like a hurricane without the wind. So you have issues regarding replacement of roofs when they may or may not have been necessary. There's a lot of fraud that's been going in there. There's also a legal issue. The legal climate in Florida is terrible when it comes to litigation. So that contributes greatly to the incentive for people to get involved, vendors, primarily roofers. There's water extraction companies also involved, and then, of course, attorneys.
Oh, the attorneys. They always got to be in there, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
They seem to muddle up everything. I don't know. They're the ones that are supposed to be straightening things out, but they seem to muddle it up even worse. How will it become even more unstable after Hurricane Ian?
Well, in addition to the roof issue, the pre-roof issue, the pre-hurricane issue, I should say, there were a number of companies who have gone bankrupt, and there's going to be pressure on the remaining companies on their financial stability. So we'll find out if we're going to have any that drop off, go into receivership. Hopefully we don't. But because of the losses that insurance companies have had, primarily in the last few years, because of those roof issues we discussed, you've got additional pressure now where they're going to have real losses from the things that insurance companies are supposed to pay for. So,
Wow. Okay, now insurance companies, as you just stated, they seem to be dropping Florida homeowners like gangbusters. Can you explain how and why the private insurance industry has lost more than $1 billion in the last 2 years, while hundreds of thousands of Floridians have had their policies dropped or renewed?
Ooh.
Is there any way to explain that?
yep. And it's when they lose money, then you have, again, pressure. Some of those companies, I'm not sure the statistics, but there's companies that are out of business. There's, I think it was 6 companies since 2019 have gone out of business because they failed. You know, they didn't have enough money to pay claims. The state takes them over. There's a process that they go through to make sure people that had claims get paid. So that's the part where the companies are no longer here. Then you have the other thing where companies are saying, we're losing money. Do we want to lose less money or more money? So they take some of the exposure they have, meaning the customers, and they pick out the ones that they say are the most risky. The older roofs come into play, and so they end up getting canceled or non-renewed.
Wow. So at this point, what should a homeowner do if they find their policy has been dropped or not renewed?
Well, first thing is to talk to their agent. Depending on their agent, we're an independent agent. East Coast Insurors is an independent insurance agency. We represent a number of different companies, so we would look, if it were us, we would look at other companies to see what we might be able to do. Depending on the age of your roof, there's a lot of things they look at: age of roof, water heaters, your HVAC system, plumbing, electrical updates. They're going to be things that the insurance company is looking at. So all the other companies know that that's where the losses come from. So they want to make sure that those systems are up to date.
So so living in Florida, I mean, I guess it's kind of an assumed risk, right? So how do you guys as an insurance company, I guess, provide coverage for people when you know hurricanes are coming? You know, we got mudslides, you know, we got sinkholes, we have all of these contributing factors. So how do you guys actually cover people?
That's a great question, Phil. Insurance companies have these guys called actuaries, which are real smart guys that know a lot about math. And so they look at the statistics, they take the data. It's even more available now with computerization than previously. And so they look at those numbers and decide, okay, what risk can we take? Where can we take it? Like, can we take it in Florida, or do we need to have less in Florida? Can we take it near the coast, or do we need to be away from the coast? And they decide what they can do. And obviously, most people in Florida have insurance, so companies are willing to take that risk. What's become a problem is that this legal issue with the roofs and the attorneys has become as I mentioned, like a hurricane. So that was a risk that the insurance companies were not aware of. They didn't know that was going to happen. So because of that, they've got this additional loss built into their financial system now, and they're not prepared for it. And the rates are, you see, going up in Florida because of that. So that's a reaction to the claims they're having to pay. The other reaction is, we can't make money at any price, so we're just going to not sell insurance or not sell as much in this area.
Wow. So we got comments in the Facebook chat here. Someone asked, is an insurance company required to give you any type of notice before they drop your policy?
Absolutely.
And what's the notice?
It's typically on most policies it's 45 days, but on the property market in Florida, they have to give you 100 days notice. So when we're in hurricane season. So hurricane season runs June 1st to November 30th. So we're still in hurricane season. So if your company said we're going to non-renew you, first of all, they typically are going to they have to non-renew you, which means when your policy would normally expire. So if you bought a policy in, let's say, October, and they decide now, October 1st, let's say, and they decide now that they're going to non-renew you, well, they missed their chance, and now they have to wait till next October.
What are some factors that would make them non-renew you?
The age of your roof.
Okay.
Claims. You've had claims. It could be, you had a theft claim, you had a water leak in your house, and then you have a hurricane loss. They cannot non-renew you for just a hurricane loss. Excuse me.
So that's be multiple claims? Or?
Doesn't have to be. It can be one claim.
Okay.
So it can be one claim.
But not a hurricane claim.
Right.
Okay, because that was my question. I was like, if it's 100 days, a lot could happen in 100 days.
Yes.
You can have a hurricane, file a claim, and then I don't want to get a letter 3 months from now saying you dropped me because of the hurricane.
Right.
Right. So they can't do that.
Right. And they know that, obviously, the insurance company knows that in that example we were discussing there, October 1st, they know that your next renewal is October 1st of 2023. So they're going to have to get prepared to non-renew you 100 days before October 1st. So that's a little over 3 months. So, sometime in June, they would be sending you a non-renewal notice for October 1st of 2023. So it's not, you have a fair amount of notice, but when everybody else is, Wayne was mentioning a lot of people got canceled. I actually did look at some information here. Since February of 2020, 189, almost 190,000 cancellations or non-renewals.
Ooh.
Wow.
190,000. Since October of 2019, 7 companies, I think, have been declared insolvent, 406. So that throws 416,000 people on the street. And that's a little different. When a company goes into receivership, there's a judge that decides it's either a viable company or it has to go into receivership. And when it goes into receivership, the judge says, okay, today is November 4th, 30 days from today, all the policies for this company are going to be canceled. So December either 4th or 5th, they're going to be canceled. So that's a short notice when the company goes into receivership.
So is there a way a homeowner can, I guess, prevent a cancellation? Okay, you said the age of the roof, but is there a way, let's say they get a notice 100 days out, can they fix any of the issues before they get canceled and then say, hey, can you come back and re-inspect my stuff? I don't want to get dropped.
That's a fantastic question. Where did you get these questions, Phil? Are you
right here, buddy?
Phil's sharp. He's sharp.
I can tell.
Would you like to take over hosting the show?
Yeah, I think he's already got the answers. I think he's just testing me.
Yeah.
So, what was the question? Multiple. Is it? Can you fix the things?
Yeah.
The answer is yes, depending on what it is. If you've had 3 claims, no, you can't fix it. They've already happened, and so you're probably the cancellation would continue. But let's say we're canceling you because of your roof. First of all, one of the things that was changed in the special session the governor called in May is that an insurance company cannot cancel you solely, keyword, solely, on the basis of the age of your roof. So,
okay. Wayne, you hear that?
Yep.
So if they didn't like your roof because it was 18 years old, 15 years, you'll hear a lot of people say, the insurance companies are kind of using that as a line in the sand, and so the state realized that, and so when they did the special session, they wanted something for the consumer, some protection, and so the protection they gave them was you can't use that as the only reason. So if that's the only reason, they can't cancel you for that. If they come up with another reason, then they could say, well, how old is your water heater? Well, it's 20 years old. Well, we require 15 on that too. So those are, but they have to have more than one reason as of the special session. And
well, what that does is it kind of forces people to maintain their homes properly now.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there for a myriad of reasons that just don't do that.
Right.
and it ends up costing. I can understand if you're an insurance company and you're insuring somebody's home and they don't take care of their home, why that ends up falling on them.
Yes. Yeah.
So
That's a good point. Pride of ownership used to be, when I first got in the insurance business, that was what I was taught was one of the key things, that the way people took care of their home kind of was a signal as to how they would either have claims or not claims. And certainly, an 18-year-old roof isn't necessarily bad in and of itself. There's some roofs that are 18 years old that are still, very tight, and work well. But the insurance companies have also, they've been kind of forced to, because of these roofing issues where people are claiming I had hail damage to my roof and they want a new roof. When there's really, that's not the whole story. The insurance company ends up getting forced to pay the claim because the legal system in the state of Florida, and so there's those issues that come into play.
I want to go back to something that we kind of spoke about briefly and then slid right by, but I think it's very important and it's worth bringing it up again. You are an independent insurance agent.
Correct.
Okay, and so the benefit of doing business with you is the fact that you represent a myriad of insurance companies.
Yes.
Whereas if you are with an Allstate or a State Farm or Progressive, you're with them. If you lose them, you're out. But you have the ability to then find another company within your stable.
Correct. And you mentioned Allstate, for instance, that they used to be have just the access to Allstate, and for automobile that's still the same way. But in Florida, the Allstate agents have access to the company allows them to contract with other companies, so they have some flexibility. I think State Farm is still pretty rigid on it's either State Farm or nothing. So some of those, and Geico, for instance, the ones you see advertising on TV, Liberty Mutual, they're direct writers, and if they can't do it with their company, then you're not going to get it done. So yeah, it's a good point.
So that's an advantage of doing business with someone like yourself.
Absolutely. That's why I went to work for Allstate when I first got out of college, and was an underwriter there in personal lines, and learned what the insurance companies liked and what they didn't like, and what would get you canceled and what you could get away with. And I've realized that, if somebody, especially in insurance, where you develop long relationships with people, if you take care of them, do the right thing, listen to them, help them make decisions on coverage. It's a very complex product, so it's not easily understood by most people. Insurance policies are impossible to read. Not impossible, but they're not any fun. And but I found that, you'd have a customer all these years and the Allstate agent would have to turn it away. And I go, well, gosh, I like this customer. They like me. I'd like to, and they're still paying me. I'd like them to still continue to pay. So that's why we chose the independent agency business.
And how long have you been doing this?
47 years.
47
Wow.
years. Wow.
Wow.
Yes.
I got another question. I want to try and stump you here.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so it's actually a two-part question, right? What actually constitutes as a claim? Whether or not if someone sees damage and they say, "Hey, I can fix this," should they always call you to take a look at it, or can they, I guess, try and fix it themselves first if they don't think it's going to be expensive?
Right. The book answer is you should always report the claim. But, of course, you have a deductible. So in the typical homeowner policy, the non-hurricane deductible is $1,000. So if you had water damage claim, it's tempting to say, well, it doesn't look too bad. I think I can, I can do this or do that, get some Clorox, whatever. I think that I can get it, taken care of. And so you don't report it. The insurance company has the right to inspect the damage if you want them to pay the claim. So if you don't do that, and let's say 2 months goes by and all of a sudden you see on the ceiling, what's that black stuff up there? And it turns out that you didn't get all the water from behind the wall. You didn't realize it went behind the wall. It crawled up. It was wicked up by the drywall. into the ceiling, and now it's got into the ceiling, the insulation and all that. And now you go, it's not a $300, Clorox fix. So then you say, or maybe what gets your attention is part of the wall fell down, and then you can tell it's really serious. And somebody comes out and says, this whole wall's going to have, it could be all in here. So then you want to file a claim. The company, when did it happen? It was about 6 months ago. Well, what happened? Then the insurance companies don't have to, because every policy says one of the conditions of receiving a claim benefit is that you promptly, it's promptly now. The word used to be a really difficult wording, but now it's just promptly. That's not defined, so they'd look in the dictionary and see what does that say. If you're in a coma, you don't have to report it while you're in the coma in the hospital.
Oh, what a relief!
But when you when you get out of the hospital, you can't wait 3 years before you decide that, that's not promptly. So it's, what would a reasonable person say is promptly, so.
You answered my other question I was going to ask. Is there a time frame to actually file a claim? Because, somebody may have, hurricane pass, about end of September. Maybe they don't see any damage until now.
Right. Yes.
So they can still call you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, and if they report it, then the company, you can always tell the company, look, it's only, $800. I'm not gonna continue the claim. The bad thing is the company knows about the claim because you reported it, and insurance companies are like elephants in that they remember everything because they write it down. So a little different than elephants, but they remember that claim. So if you have a couple of others, when you get your non-renewal notice, they'll send it to you and they'll say, well, you had this on this date, this on this date, this on this date. And you go, oh, gosh, I didn't even get anything for that claim, Oh, wow. So you have to kind of, look at it carefully. So there is it's kind of a risk sometimes to report it, and there's a risk to not reporting it too if it gets worse. If nothing goes worse, then obviously there's not.
So then it's advisable for those of us that are listening to us right now that they might possibly want to think about reporting whatever kind of damage, however minor it may be, to their insurance company, and at least get it out in the open that you've had this problem.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's a good point too, Wayne. That they're in Florida because of the hurricanes. There is most companies have a hurricane deductible, and let's say you had, let's say there was a hurricane in July, and you had some damage, and you say, well, I know I have a 2%. 2% doesn't sound hurricane deductible. 2% hurricane deductible, that doesn't sound like much till you've got a $300,000 house, and 2% of $300,000 is $6,000. So all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh. So that's a lot of money when somebody's not paying you that. So, but let's say you say, I know what this is going to cost. I can fix it myself. It's going to cost $1,000 in materials, and I'll do it in a half a day. So you do that, and you don't file a claim. So if you file the claim, let's say then we have Hurricane Ian that comes by here, and you have $20,000 in damage. It's going to be over your $6,000 hurricane deductible in that example. And if you haven't filed that before, then you're going to, even though you paid to fix it, you're going to suffer that $6,000 hurricane deductible. If you reported it, that kind of goes against the remaining hurricane deductible during that policy term. So when your policy renews, it starts all over again. Mm-hmm. But so in that case, you would have reported the claim, you didn't get anything because it was under your deductible. But then you have the second claim where you have $20,000 in damage. Instead of having a $6,000 deductible, you'd have a $5,000 deductible at that time.
Wow. So I find this stuff really interesting. I got a million questions. If you don't mind.
No, go right ahead.
Okay.
I mean, this is important stuff, and this is why people this morning were telling me I'm going to listen to this because I got a million questions. Yeah. That I want to find out about. Insurance is something that everybody knows you got to have it, and it's like everybody needs to have their own lawyer on hand.
That's true.
Okay, to figure these things out.
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing the show that we're doing right now today.
I feel like we're getting some free game here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think Phil is a ringer. I didn't know Phil was going to be here and have this kind of questions.
I'm trying to throw him off. Okay, so I heard a rumor about Hurricane Ian, right? And people on this coast weren't getting their claims paid for because it wasn't classified as a hurricane when it hit here. Is that true, or is that false? It's false.
That's
okay, because I saw people were saying I'm not getting covered because it was a tropical storm
No.
when it hit here, and they have hurricane coverage.
that's another good question. I don't know where he comes up with them, but he's been studying. So once we'll talk about the bad part of that. So once it's a hurricane, once it's declared a hurricane for any part of Florida, the hurricane deductible kicks in. So people will say, hey, it passed by here, it did $10,000 in damage to my house. I want the non-hurricane deductible, $1,000 instead of $6,000 in that example we were talking about, applied to my loss. That's one thing. So no, sorry, once it's declared a hurricane for any part of Florida, that hurricane deductible is going to apply. Now, if you have a pipe break in somebody stole stuff out of your house and it's $20,000 worth of stuff, the hurricane deductible does not apply. But any wind loss is going to be a hurricane wind loss in that case. So no, the fact that well, first of all, here's the other thing that's a good explanation, Phil, is that people think of only hurricane loss because that's what the big thing we see on TV, right? It's the dramatic thing, changes lives, kills people.
I mean, look at that.
Yeah. So exactly. So we're looking at some hurricane damage there. It looks, wow. Yeah, the power of Mother Nature. Yeah, it's got a hole in the roof. It's pretty evident there. So but windstorm, any kind of wind is covered, not just hurricane. So you can have a summer storm. We have thunderstorms here in Florida
Every summer.
Yeah,
3 o'clock.
And there's some that whip up about 60-mile-an-hour winds. So those are wind claims. They're non-hurricane claims. So you'd have that $1,000 deductible. Then we have tropical storms, non-hurricane. Now that changes a little bit. You still have coverage, but it's going to be if a hurricane warning was issued for Florida, then you're going to have that hurricane deductible. Tornado, that's also a windstorm. And then, of course, hurricane. So all those variations of wind are really fancy names for, different kinds of winds. They're not that fancy either. So
what happened in 2004 when you guys got hit by 3 hurricanes in like 2 weeks? How did you guys cover all that?
So the actuaries, remember those guys with the math guys with computers, they knew, well, first of all, there was a couple of companies, I can't remember the number there, during Hurricane Andrew, which was one big storm in 1992. That's the one that got insurance companies' attention in Florida, that they were way overexposed in Florida. So they had the math guys calculating, and they said, many of them left the state of Florida and have never come back for home insurance. So they're prepared to pay that. They know there could be more than one storm. History tells us, and sometimes, history does what it wants to do, in the future. So we could have, we actually had 4 storms in Florida that year. One of them hit the Panhandle. The other 3 hit us here and near us here. And then the one in the Panhandle, Ivan, I think it was the 4th storm. So they're prepared for those multiple storms.
I'm trying to throw him off, Wayne, but I don't know if I can. I'm trying to get him here, but he's answering all of my questions.
One more thing on the multiple storms. So insurance companies buy insurance too. They have, yes, workers' comp, and they have property insurance, but they also buy what's called reinsurance. This is what is going to probably be a real problem in the Florida insurance market. So those multiple storms, a company prepares and they have, millions of dollars to pay that. And then along comes storm number 2. Well, now they have less millions of dollars, and let's say they have enough for storm number 2, but then along comes number 3, like the year that Phil was talking about. Maybe we don't have enough at that point. Maybe we have some of the money, but not all of the money. Well, that's what their reinsurance program is designed to do. And if they don't structure it properly or fund it enough, then they may run out of money and may end up in bankruptcy. So that's a real good question. So the best companies try to prepare for that and fund for it through reinsurance.
Wow. So we can tie this up in a nice, neat bow by saying that the state's regulators and insurers, their claim that the state's crisis with regard to insurance really stems from all these lawsuits.
Yes, I can. So here's a factor here's a statistic for you. Florida has 8% of the property insurance claims in the United States. So all the states, Florida has 8% of them. Florida's the third biggest state, so we're going to have more than the average bear, right? But how many lawsuits do you think we have on property insurance claims?
Oh my God!
What percentage? So we have 8% of the claims.
37%.
75%.
75%.
I was going to guess 50%, but 75%.
75%. Florida has more lawsuits on property insurance claims than all the other states combined.
Why?
Because of our one-way attorney fee structure and fee multipliers. And those are the real big drivers of why these free roof situations have come up and why, there's attorneys there's law firms now that own roofing companies.
Oh.
What?
Oh my God, yes. That should be illegal.
Double dipping?
That's a double, yeah.
So, they could own an insurance agency, but, they could, but I guess they know where the money is, so that statistic here. So the first one has been around a little while. The first statistic, 8% of the claims, the property claims are generated in Florida, but 75% of the lawsuits. But then I saw it written a different way yesterday, and I said, gosh, that even sounds worse, It's like, what? We have more claims than 49 other states, and it's because of the way the law is written, and it involves attorney fees where attorneys can get fees on claims, because a lot of things you sue for you cannot get attorney's fees, but Florida has a statute in the Florida insurance law and maybe it's not in the insurance law, but it regards insurance claims. I'll tell you one bit of a ray of hope for the homeowners that have insurance policies that are listening. The governor has called another special session for sometime after the election, but before the end of the year. So that tells me how important it is. So they must know that and he did it right after Ian or right before Ian. I can't remember. It's very close to when Ian was coming. And what they're going to focus on is a couple of things, but the main thing for insurance is they're going to focus on that one-way attorney fee. So because that has to go. If that doesn't go, I think you're going to see many more companies fail in the state of Florida. So
is that why car insurance is so expensive? Because all the PIP scams?
So attorney involvement is also at issue there. It's not quite as bad. It's definitely not as bad as the property insurance. And they're involved in water extraction claims, and there's some glass, shenanigans going on where if somebody comes to you in the parking lot and says, "Hey, I see a chip in your windshield," that's a scam. They're going to overcharge your insurance. They're going to sue your insurance company is what they're aiming to do. And they just know how to do it. And unfortunately, the insurance companies know the way the law is written in Florida. They're likely going to settle. That's just the way it is right now. So, of course, guess who gets to pay for that? If you have a homeowner's insurance policy, you and I and everybody else gets to pay for it. So the insurance companies don't want to pay for it, but they're, and they know at some point that you and I are not going to be able to afford the numbers they're throwing out on insurance premiums.
Yeah. So what actually dictates the price of homeowners insurance?
Statistics.
Well, okay, we'll get that. That's where I was going to go next.
Okay.
Okay, you kind of led me right in.
My brain is just going a million miles an hour.
Yeah. There have been sharp increases in homeowner policies, and property owners struggle to find coverage in this private market. Now, the average annual premiums have risen to more than $4,200 in Florida, which is triple the national average. Would that be about correct?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. Is that the case for those covered under Citizens Property Insurance, which is created by the state legislature in 2002 for Floridians unable to find coverage from their own private insurers?
So Citizens is in, kind of in the same boat. They get sued over these roofs and these assignment of benefits. We haven't talked about that, but assignment of benefits issues, but their structure, unfortunately, is such that they have not been actuarially sound. So we're an insurance company that, for a for-profit insurance company, the private market, if at the end of the year they don't have enough money in the bank, they go away, eventually. So if they do that, several years in a row, then they're in the receivership line, So they try to be profitable and price it. They have to go to the state and show the state their numbers as far as here's what the rates are, here's what our expenses were, here's what our legal costs were, and the state looks at that, and then they could decide that you're overcharging. You have to adjust your rates. So the state, the Department of Insurance. It's called the Office of Insurance Regulation, has dominion over that. Citizens is not charging actuarially sound rates. Their rates are typically right now below where the private market is. So there's an incentive for people to go into Citizens because of price. There's some coverage deficiencies in the Citizens policy, so it's not the same as your policy, but it's pretty close. And so most people, at the time they get that $4,200 premium notice, they're looking for any kind of relief. Can you save me $500? Can you, anything is appreciated. So if Citizens would take them for, $500 less, they're ready to jump ship. The one thing people don't remember about Citizens is it is an assessable policy. That means that the rate you pay is not the final rate you pay. If Citizens, like Hurricane Ian here, is going to put stress on Citizens, but I think they're going to, from what I read so far, they're going to be okay. But if they don't have enough money to pay claim, unlike a private company who cannot go to just, hey, will you give me some money? They can go to the Citizens can assess their policyholders and say, hey, we ran out of money. We need some more money from you. And there's a formula for that. So the policyholder would pay first. Then if that wasn't enough to pay the deficiency of all their claims, they then go to the rest of the policyholders in the state of Florida, the non-Citizens policyholders, and say, hey, Citizens ran out of money. We've collected from our policyholders already. Now we're going to collect from you. And that has happened a couple of times. It hasn't happened, I think, since 2005 was the last time. So that's the good news. It hasn't happened in a while. And Citizens has been pretty well funded, but they're going to be stressed this time. So maybe they have enough. It kind of sounds to me like they do. But that's the deficiency that most people don't see past the $500 savings.
Right.
Right.
That's what they lock on to.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yes.
In May, lawmakers approved legislation with bipartisan support. Can you imagine that? Bipartisan support that many in the State House regarded as a meaningful first step in repairing the market. As an insurer, do you feel that the approved legislation will help the property insurance market in Florida?
Yes, but not. It's going to take a while. Yeah. So the things that passed in that May special session were there were some positive things for the consumer, like, hey, you can't cancel me if the only thing is my 15-year-old roof. There were a couple of things. There were several things there, but that was one of the biggest, was the people getting canceled just because their roof is 15 years old. And what was the other part, Wayne, that you mentioned?
They approved legislation, bipartisan support, regarded as a meaningful first step in repairing the market.
Yes. So the other part, remember, was there was some where they limited the fee multiplier, and this is, unless you're in the insurance business or you're an attorney that is involved in these kind of things, probably don't have any experience with it. But a fee multiplier was created to give people in primarily rural areas where there's not a lot of legal representation. There's not a lawyer on every corner. And most areas of Florida are not like that anymore. So it was designed to give them access to lawyers who would take their case, and regarding insurance claims. So it's my understanding this doesn't apply to every kind of lawsuit. It's on insurance claims. And I'll tell you why that is, because that's where the money is. There's a lot of people that have insurance. The insurance companies have money. How can an insurance company go bankrupt with all the money they have? Well, they don't have enough money to pay their claims. That's how it happens. But so the fee multiplier happens. I'll just give you an example of, let's say you've got a $20,000 roof. And so you don't go through your insurance company. Somebody comes knocking on your door. Let me look at your roof, and you've got hail damage. So let us take over your claim. And they get you to sign an assignment of benefits, and at that point they control your claim. You no longer control your claim on your policy. And they say $20,000. They get an estimate from their roofer. The roofer is the one that starts the process. They give an estimate for $25,000. Well, the insurance company has paid thousands of claims on roofs, and they know what they cost per square, and the pitch and all that stuff that goes into a roof. And so they resist paying $5,000 more than they should. And so then the roofer gives it to their friendly lawyer, and the lawyer takes over and starts the lawsuit process. And then if they can get it's my understanding this is the way it works. So if they can get another estimate for $1 more, so $20,000, $1 in that example.
Oh, the price is right.
That's very similar. If they can get it $1 more, it's got to be more though. It can't be less. I get $1 more, then they can. The attorney, let's say their fee on that was going to be $5,000 for handling that case. Well, then they ask the court and say, Your Honor, we think because we did this and that, we deserve a fee multiplier of 2.5. Well, instead of getting a $5,000 fee, they get a $12,500 fee. Oh. So there's a bigger incentive. I mean, they may end up getting more in legal fees than the person gets in compensation for their real loss. So that's that part has been taken out. The consumer can still do that. So if you were the one, asking for this, you could still. Well, no, you couldn't get it, but yes, you could. Your lawyer would get that. But because the roofer or this other attorney for the roofer is a third party, that's been taken out of it. So there's going to be a big incentive taken out of that. It's going to take that time to work through the legal system. So the relief is probably real, but it's not enough, and it's going to take a while for it to work through the system. Because every policy doesn't come up for renewal right now, where they could start to see the changes that come up, over the course of the year.
Wow.
So I got
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
So a lot of insurance companies, they prioritize bundling. So you have your house, your car, your life,
everything,
all that. Let's say something like Ian came and there was a total loss of your house, your car. Which claim is paid? Is it each individual one is paid, or
Yes.
do you just say homeowners goes over all of it?
No, each one's a separate contract. Your insurance policy is a contract, and people don't understand that for the most part, but it is. It's a contract, and it's between you and the insurance company. They say we're going to provide these written benefits. Inside the contract states what the benefits are, and then you, the insured, receive the benefit should you have a claim. But as far as, like, let's say you mentioned life insurance. Let's say, one of your family members was killed and your family member had a life insurance policy. That is a separate policy. It doesn't have anything to do with the homeowner or the auto. They're not related, other than you may get a bundling discount is what the bundling is. It's a discounting mechanism.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got any more great questions over there?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so let's say the average price of a home in Florida, I think, is $400,000 now.
Wow.
So when you guys factor in price, you said I forgot what you said earlier, but does it vary on the cost of the home or the location? Like, what are the parameters that you guys actually use to adjust to say, hey, your house is worth this much, this is what we're covering you for?
So never say worth.
Okay.
because except when you're talking to your realtor.
All right.
Because what the insurance policy is designed, but we all think in terms of what you just said, Phil, is what did I pay for my house? Because we all want to think like, well, when I sell it in 20 years, I hope it's $600,000 or $800,000. That's what we think of. But your insurance company thinks of it as, how much is it going to cost them to rebuild your house or to repair your house if it's damaged by a covered peril. So, the things that go into making up the rate are, yes, if you have a $300,000 house, replacement cost, reconstruction cost, versus it's going to cost less than a $400,000 house in the same location. You mentioned location. If you're on the beach side, it's going to cost more. If you're out in the woods, away from fire protection, like City of Port Orange, where we're at now, has very good fire protection. It has a very low rating. The lower rating is actually good on fire insurance. So that part of the insurance policy, the rates are better in Port Orange than they would be, say, in I'm trying to think of another area. Holly Hill's a little higher. Same house in Holly Hill would be a little bit higher because the fire rate there is a little higher. You are on the beach side, you're closer to the ocean where the danger, the greater danger is. Obviously, there's danger everywhere in Florida from a hurricane, but it's usually more devastating on the beach side. So location makes a difference. Construction, usually concrete block, masonry houses are less expensive than frame because of the fire rate, again, being lower for that. Hip roof is a very big discount. Hip roof versus gable roof or flat roofs. A hip roof is a roof where when you look at it, the roof is angling down towards the ground.
Is this a hip roof?
Yes, it is. That part is a hip roof. We'd have to look and see. It probably is. A tile roof typically is going to be hip all the way around. Have you got one that's not tile?
Well, there's no roof left here.
There you go. Okay. Wow. Well, there is some roof left. So that gives us, if you look, that is a gable roof. So and the front, the brick face, you see how it goes up at the roof line, looks like a triangle.
Right.
That's a gable. And the reason that costs more is, if you think about it, pretend the house is in a wind tunnel and wind is blowing up against that at 150 miles an hour. It's creating, there's not drag, but it's a, it's like
a resistance.
Yes, it's wind resistance is very high. There's a lot of weight being pushed on that wall by the wind. If you were to go on the sides there, where you can see from the left and right, those are shingle on that side.
Right.
They're pointing towards the ground. If you went there, when the wind gets to that wall there's a short wall there, but then the wind hits that roof and it rolls up over the roof and over the house. So it's a very aerodynamic structure. So if it's hip all the way around, it gets a significant, when I say significant, it's going to be several hundred to, could be $1,000 difference.
Wow. Is that a roof here in Florida, Phil? Do you know?
Yeah, I typed in Florida roof damage, Florida hurricane roof damage, and so
Wow.
yeah, that's a total loss, right?
Yeah.
That's a total loss, right?
Well, I don't. It could be. I'd say that's a possibility. They could save that one. So,
Wow.
I don't think you could live in it. That's for sure. Not like that. So you'd have to be a
today.
total loss.
Well, no, they could. You could. Yeah, you'd have to move out maybe today. But then, if there were contractors available, the one of the things that comes with catastrophic losses like Ian is you have thousands of people who have to move. Either their house is not there because of the storm surge, it's just totally gone, or people have damage so significant they have to move out of their house while it's constructed. And where are you going to move to? If all of a sudden there's 1,000 people in Volusia County that need housing, you can't fix them all on one day.
Well, they can come stay here.
Yeah,
At Country Inn.
Yes,
That's right. Come and stay. It's a great plug.
yeah,
It's a great plug. Come
natural.
here and stay at Country Inn and Suites right here in Port Orange.
Yeah.
Excellent. And which, by the way, we ought to plug them a little bit for those of you planning on vacation to come down here to Florida. This is the property you really want to stay at for a number of reasons. Number one, it's very reasonable, but most importantly, it's right square in the middle of a triangle of Daytona Beach and the Daytona National Speedway, Kennedy Space Center, and Orlando. We're just really minutes from all three of those markets. And so this is the best place that you could possibly want to stay. You won't be paying Orlando rates, and you'll still have close proximity to all the major attractions. And this is a beautiful, beautiful property. This is why we make it our home to produce the Lowdown. And I recommend you highly get on their website and check it out, make your reservations, and get on down.
Yeah, this place is actually really gorgeous.
Yeah, it is. You can't beat it. That's really clean, and the food's great, and their continental breakfast that they have, and just outstanding. Right off the interstate, you can't miss it. So let me get back to the roof law, so to speak. In this legislation that was approved by lawmakers in May, among the provisions in that was the creation of a $2 billion reinsurance program that insurers could buy to help insulate themselves from the risks, so long as they reduce rates to policyholders. The law offers grants of up to $10,000 to retrofit homes, making them less vulnerable to hurricane damage. It also moves to limit various attorney fees in insurance-related lawsuits. Is this where the new roofing law came into effect?
Well, no. When you say new roofing law, it's the only part of the law that affects the roofs is the fact that an insurance company can no longer use the roof age as the reason for cancellation.
Okay.
The only reason. So they have to have something else. So that was in the law.
According to the information I have, the new roof law states that if a homeowner's roof is 10 years old or older, it is mandatory that the roof be replaced. But you said that's not true.
I'm not aware of that. I'm pretty sure that's not accurate.
Okay. Are insurance companies working off a roster of building permits provided to them by the cities to contact homeowners with a roof over 10 years old? Do you know if that's going on?
I'm pretty sure that's not going on.
Are there any exceptions to this rule, especially if the roof has been properly inspected and still has some viable life regardless of the age?
Yes. So part of that, where the insurance companies can't use the roof age as the sole reason for canceling you, they also must, if they're using the roof age or condition, the roof age as one of the reasons, they must allow you to have an inspection paid by you, the insured, from one of their authorized inspectors, meaning the insurance company's authorized inspectors. We just had this come up in our agency yesterday, and they gave 2 authorized inspection agencies, and the insured called the first one, and he said, "We're full up. We don't have any openings up right now," and called the second one, and they did have some room. So, yes, that is a kind of a safety valve there in the new law. But it has to have 5 years of useful life left. So,
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think we've covered that roof law to death by now. We've gone back and forth on it. We keep getting more and more questions about it. That's the only reason why I asked again. Steve, we have covered a lot, but we are running out of time. We could do probably another 2 hours worth of show. Maybe we need to reschedule another one.
Because a lot of people just don't know this information.
No, they don't. Yeah. And you've been very, very gracious with your time, taking time out away from your business to come here and answer these questions. So let's talk a little bit about your agency. You've got 2 locations, one in Ormond Beach up on US 1, yep, and the other one in Palm Coast.
Correct.
Okay, and you have a whole stable of agents up there that are ready to help people and yep, with any information, anything they need to know.
I have great people. Okay,
why don't you give them your phone numbers and your website?
Phone number in Ormond Beach is 386-677-4787. In Palm Coast, it's 386-446-3426. Website is www.eastcoastinsurers.com. I don't know if you have to use the www anymore.
But, yeah, that's right. People don't say that anymore.
No, you don't have to.
Okay, no. Good now. See, Phil taught me something here today. So, yes, East Coast Insurers and Insurors.
Insurors, O-R-S.
INSURORS. So if I'd have known that Al Gore was going to invent the internet, I would have spelled it INSURERS. But I also am a realtor, REALTOR. So I said, I'm going to make realtor insurer kind of go together. And, it's the old insurer is the old English way.
It's like theater.
Insurer.
It's like theater and
yes.
theater.
Wow, I didn't know that. You're a realtor also?
I am a realtor. I don't have time to mess with it. And
wow.
I enjoyed real estate. That was probably one of my biggest mistakes is not combining real estate with insurance. So because they're very combinable. Yeah,
it's not too late to start.
It's too late.
Not too late to start. You could do it.
I don't think so.
Wow. Yeah. Anyway, we appreciate you coming on and answering these questions. Folks, if you need information about insurance, this is the man. He knows everything about it, as you can tell. We learned a great deal, and we look forward to having him on again in the near future to answer some more questions, because I'm sure after this, as we typically do, mm-hmm, there's a lot of people that will be sending things in saying, "Oh, I wish I would have known. I would, we should have asked that. We should have done that." And we'll do it again. I'm sure Steve will be happy to join us again. And
absolutely,
coming up in the next couple of weeks, so we'll be announcing our next guest as to who and what we're going to be talking about. It'll be something that's going to be pertinent to the issues that we faced nowadays here in Volusia and Flagler County. But for today, we did the very best we could to talk to you all about insurance and to give you the lowdown.